Hi, I'm Matt O'Malia of Geologic, and we're here at the Geologic prototype site where we're building a sustainable, high-performance residential building. And part of the construction process is looking at the landscape and the environmental impact of how we build in a field and in a site. And to talk to me a little bit about the details of how we're addressing those problems and issues is Ann Kearsley, a landscape architect of Ann Kearsley Design. I think one thing we had tried to address in the prototype design and construction as it relates to the landscape is how we plan to minimize the impact of the building and the construction site in order to preserve not only the natural environment but also costs in a project like this. And Ann, if you could tell us a little bit more about the thinking that goes behind that and how you achieve those goals.
Sure. The basic structure of sustainable design is to really start with the site itself, to really understand what is actually there before you put what you want to be there in place. And Matt and Alan and I spent a good bit of time on the site looking at the drainage patterns, looking at the existing vegetation, looking at any clues to the history of the use of the site, and more importantly, tried to understand how the water moves to the site, how the sunlight over the course of the day moves to the site, and how to work with that existing set of conditions rather than fight it or try to change it. And by working with what is occurring naturally on the site, it's less expensive. It is also, in terms of money, it's less expensive in terms of environmental impact, in terms of the cost of repairing damage that you do, or if you completely mess up the existing drainage, of having to make sure the water gets where it needs to go without wiping out your basement or your parking area or your driveway. So let me show you a few examples of what I'm talking about. Typically in conventional construction, a site is pretty much taken over by the crew and by any deliveries or storage of materials. And while there may be some loam that's taken off and stockpiled, it's usually put in a huge pile, which, because of how soil works, destroys a lot of the productive elements, meaning the microorganisms that are in soil, that make it an important asset to the site. So in clearing this site and preparing it for construction, we've, as you can see, put the loam in long, relatively shallow piles. We've just seeded it with a cover crop. We've stockpiled the stone that we discovered either in the loam as we were scooping it off, or that came from the stone wall that we had to open up to put the driveway in. And these piles, all of this loam will get reused as the project continues. We've also tried to limit the actual area where construction takes place. So you see there's this driveway here, and that parking area down there are gravel, and they'll remain gravel. Gravel is porous, the rainwater can move through it. The site contractors that come in will have to stay on that gravel surface and not drive on the loamed areas that you see. We have a silt fence, which is that black fence in the distance there. That's preventing any soil that does erode during the course of the project, which we're trying to prevent. That's what we're seeding, and we're going to put hay on the exposed soil. But that will prevent soil erosion from happening and disturbing surrounding sites, which is very important for sustainable design. So this is a stand of milkweed that is existing on the site, and we've made sure to preserve it because this is an important food for the monarch butterfly. And as you can see, we also have preserved as much of the existing field as possible, so that the benefit of the vegetative cover, which has to do with benefits of soils and habitat preservation for other animals that are here, remains, and it remains active and healthy during the course of the project and beyond. Here we see Matt and Alan putting hay on top of the loam stockpile, which we've seeded with winter rye, but we're also putting hay down to prevent any erosion from happening when the rain hits these piles. Managing stormwater on a site is one of the critical aspects of any project. And in this case, by creating a relatively flat place for the building foundation to be placed, the slab, we've ended up interrupting the flow of water down what was essentially a continuous slope from the top of the driveway to the base of the field. So we're going to install a bioswale here, which is essentially a swale, a low point that pitches down where the water is captured and directed around the house, and we'll plant it with plants that can experience a large range of water inundation and drought, depending on whether the bioswale is filled with rain water to drain the site. So this is the base of the septic field that's being filled today. We've got the sand layer, and that will be topped with the lines of pipes that the sewage goes into and filters down through the sand base. The tank will be up close to the house here. And as you can see, again, we are limiting the amount of soil that is disturbed by working tightly against the building and limiting the travel here to particular routes rather than all over the site. Paying attention to how you move on a site, paying attention how the water moves on the site, and limiting the disruption to the site are critical aspects of sustainable site design.